I need to install some cabinets, and I really could use an adjustable height helper to do that. So I'm going to build a simple stand, kind of a dead man. We're going to use some plywood. Total height's going to be 36 inches when compacted all the way. That way it matches the height of the table saw. Going to make it 16 inches wide. Then we're going to put a couple of notches here so that it stores away flat, but if needed, we can add a piece to make a square top. And I'll show you how that works later. Total width is 1.5 inches for the inner slot, and we're going to wrap it around with some plywood, and that's going to be a total of 2.5 inches when we're done. To get started, we'll make the base pieces, we'll taper the sides, and then we'll get to working on the center.
I'm going to start by trimming the bottoms and the tops. I've set the fence to 4 inches and ripped any scrap pieces I may have. I ended up using some pieces from a sheet of plywood. That was minimal. Then I'm going to cut the width on the table saw. It was a quick set. And then I used my commercial tapering jig, bought that a few years ago, to set the angles on the sides. Now I'm going to cut the inner portion to length. Later on we can adjust the overall height of the center post.
I want to size the piece that wraps around the post pretty precisely. So I line up the edge of the post as close to the edge as possible. And then I'll take a scrap piece of the plywood to get the thickness, and then I'll mark a line. Then I'll set my table saw to just take away that line.
And now with my table saw set, I can rip through all 4 sides.
So let's test it. We've got a bottom piece, we've got a side piece, and the shaft that goes in the middle. And sure enough, there's a slight difference in size, which is good. That means this guy will slide in and out. So let's cut 2 more of these and then cut them to length.
I decided to gang all the pieces together since they're all unequal lengths. Just use a clamp at the end. I'll flip it around and then trim from the other side. I cut this little block to put at the bottom to create a nailer and a stop for the center post. Just using some staples, nothing fancy here, a little bit of glue on each side. Just make sure you don't get any glue on the center post or it won't move. And then we'll use staples throughout. That'll hold it in place while the glue dries. I did overlapping sides, so it's a matter of nailing it off, rolling it over, adding some glue, and repeating. Now when I get to the last one, I gotta put glue on 2 surfaces and make that all together. So I did the one side first, and then the assembled piece. And like before, it's a matter of putting the glue, setting the piece, and nailing it off. Now at this point you're probably asking yourself, does that center piece actually move in and out? Well, I was thinking the same thing, but guess what? It does. And it's a good snug fit. Now I take a final measurement on the length of it and trim that off. I set up an auxiliary fence on my miter gauge and a stack dado head cutter on the saw. I use this to set up all of the cuts for the tops and the bottoms. And right now I'm just using the center post to line everything up, since what I want is those slots to go right past the center post. The clamps hold everything together so it doesn't move around. Now I've had to set the stack dado head cutter at about the highest it'll go to give me 2 inches. Here I'm just doing the same thing but on the top piece. And if you're looking at this, you might notice I goofed. I did the wrong side. That's okay. Later I used it to line everything up. Some glue, and I set the pieces. Here's what I used that goof to line everything up. A staple, and then I'm going to bring in my square to make sure that we're lined up properly. I repeat this for all sides, using the miter slots to line everything up. Take your time. It's important to get this square. If not, your dead man will be off to one side, and who wants that? Again, one staple, and then I check for square and line up again. Here I'm going to measure for the slot that will make the square top. Again, it's overlapping miters, and here I actually have to cut two. Just mark them with a pencil and slid them right in. Alright, it stands up really well, but will I get the top in? Huh, there you go. Now let's work on some adjustments. I set a collar on my plunge router and used a 1/2-inch straight cutting bit. The jig that you see is what I built years ago to do pinholes for bookcases. And here I'm just going to test the dowel that I did through the outer casing and then into the inner casing. And use that first hole to align everything. And just rinse and repeat. Just keep cutting. Here I'm testing the fit, and it's a little snug, but a little bit of sandpaper on that pin, and we'll all be good. And that's basically it. Once I had it to this point, it was a matter of testing the pin. I shortened the pin to a little over 2 inches. It slides down and set. And I can't tell you how helpful this piece was. Hope you enjoyed the video. Join us next time to see what else we build on Rick's Woodworking.